Welcome back. So, okay, the Sarasota County Commission is considering banning recreational marijuana, and you're saying, I didn't know it was legal. No, it's not. Nor is there a real good chance your Florida legislature will legalize it anytime soon. But the County Commission wants to make sure if the state does legalize pot, it still won't be legal here. And that raises a number of questions. In addition to why is the County Commission wasting taxpayer time making something illegal when it already is? There's also a little known term called preemption, which means local municipalities can't pass ordinances that conflict with state law. And joining us for more are former State Representative Keith Fitzgerald, who teaches political science at New College, and Dr. Barry Gordon of the Compassionate Cannabis Clinic of Venice. And Keith, let me start with you because you are the expert on the state legislature. Knowing the legislature as you do, no matter what happens in the governor's race, how likely is Florida going to be one of those states to legalize the recreational use of marijuana?
Well, I haven't seen anything that makes you think that it's right on the horizon. On the other hand, if you look at the polling on this, it's very consistently the case that people prefer legalization with regulation and taxation at a rate of about 56 to less than that, sometimes up to 60. So I think the idea that this would be some kind of scary third rail is just people are a little bit out of touch.
Barry, you saw the interview in our story there with the gentleman saying, hey, listen, this is the last thing we need. We already have a problem with drunks driving down our highways. Now, do you really want people high on recreational marijuana passing you on I-75 out there?
Well, you know, hey, Alan, let's face it. People are using cannabis already out in society. We're all about education and making sure that the appropriate education is utilized for driving impaired for any substance, be it alcohol, be it opiates, or be it cannabis. So I see this effort as just not recognizing what's in society already, and quite frankly, as I think Keith mentioned, that 56% is going to continue to grow as each year goes by. So just very curious how they're trying to preemptively take action against something that's not even legal yet in the city. I would think they'd have other things to do.
Okay. Our conversation on Sarasota County trying to impose a recreational ban on marijuana continues. Welcome back. We are talking about Sarasota's effort to ban recreational marijuana. And joining us for more are former State Representative Keith Fitzgerald, who teaches political science at New College, and Dr. Barry Gordon of the Compassionate Cannabis Clinic of Venice. And we also should point out we invited a number of the county commissioners to join us tonight, and they couldn't. But Keith, let me start right now with you, because the county attorney told commissioners that if the commission does adopt this ordinance, the practice may become legal statewide. The state law could preempt county law. What exactly does that mean?
So in our system of government, local governments, counties and cities get all of their authority ultimately from the state. They're incorporated with the state. And since the state then is sovereign, it has the ability to preempt or overrule laws that are made locally. And the legislature here in Florida has been doing a lot of preemption in recent years. Personally, I think local democracy is a really good idea, so I don't personally approve of preemption. This, I think, is sort of a complicated case, so I'd imagine there would be lawsuits if they do this.
Barry, looking at the big picture, what would really be wrong with that in this case? After all, if you think about alcohol, we all know that there are dry counties or communities across the nation. I'm thinking about Martha's Vineyard, Vineyard Haven, if anybody is familiar with it. You can't buy alcohol there. What's wrong with a community making its own decision?
Well, I think the community needs to make the decision on an educational basis, Alan, not based on false fears, old prohibitionist attitudes, things of that nature. And I think, quite frankly, just attacking it in one way. As you know, I've got you off calling it medical marijuana, but medical cannabis now, right? Same thing goes here. You'll never hear one of the advocates call it recreational cannabis use. We call it adult, legal, responsible use, right? Because that's an entirely different thing. You'll never hear anybody call it recreational alcohol use, right? So it just needs to be approached appropriately with the right education so that everybody uses every substance appropriately.
There are some states that have moved in this direction so far. How is it working out there?
Listen, it's interesting. The research shows that maybe after a little initial rise in use, in general, teenage use goes down. adult use of alcohol also goes down, and we're seeing in any number of states that use of opiates goes down. So it's not the fear chicken little sky is falling scenario
Because,
that people
Keith,
would
that
want
is
you to
what
believe.
a lot of our viewers would be concerned about right now. They would be concerned about their kids going out to that place of business down the street and buying something that they tried to raise their kids in terms of do not try, do not smoke.
I'm a parent. I understand the concern. All parents want to protect their kids from their own bad judgment. But here's the thing to remember. People are already smoking marijuana. There's not a kid in this county or anywhere in the United States who cannot find a source of marijuana if they want it. One of the big advantages of legalizing it is that you can regulate it for safety. You can actually do a really nice job of keeping young people from buying it. You know, as the doctor says, the results show that it really doesn't have the terrible effect that people fear.
All right, we are just getting warmed up on our conversation on the Sarasota County trying to ban the recreational use of marijuana. It will continue right after a quick break. Stay with us. Welcome back. We are talking about Sarasota's effort to ban recreational marijuana, and joining us for more are State Representative Keith Fitzgerald, who teaches political science at New College, and Dr. Barry Gordon of the Compassionate Cannabis Clinic of Venice. So, Keith, let me start with what I started with initially, and that is, why is the county considering passing this ordinance when it is not even legal in the state? A lot of people may be watching this right now and say, look, we have so many challenges in Sarasota County. Why don't we do something about fixing something that is already legal or illegal?
The only explanation I can come up with is that it's grandstanding. You know, we're an older community. There are people who are very concerned about this issue, and they just want some attention. Now, you know, I would say that the proposals that most people have about a statewide program, and by the way, it's not just legalization, it's regulation and taxation. Almost all of them include a local option. So people should have some say at the local level about what they're comfortable with. So I don't have a problem with that. But it's not on the agenda now. I think they're just trying to get a little attention.
And we want to make the point once again that we invited a number of the county commissioners to appear on this broadcast, and they did not. But Barry, you know, we are concerned about our kids, whether it's a matter of alcohol or marijuana or other kinds of drugs, and many parents believe that marijuana, as we have been taught, is a gateway to other things. And you know, it's not a partisan issue any longer. You know, Patrick Kennedy, who is a friend of mine, the former congressman, campaigns around the country against marijuana becoming legal because he believes it is a gateway drug.
Well, you know, he has a personal history of addiction too, Alan, of course, you know, and what I want to speak to is that the research actually speaks to the fact that cannabis is not the entry drug. It's actually alcohol, which is the primary entry drug, and then quite frankly, opiate pills lead to further opiate abuse. Now, let's face it, you don't want your teenager running around with older kids drinking alcohol, smoking weed, pot, dope, grass, ganja, and doing all those other things. That can surely add up to be a disaster. But my belief is that by teaching the adult population appropriately about cannabis, then they teach their own teenagers and their own family. I think that's really how you solve these social issues, are within the family and the teaching environment there. We know that society in general, law enforcement, all the DARE programs, they really haven't been able to solve the, you know, drug quote-unquote problem to anybody's satisfaction. So cannabis really should not be considered with those other quote-unquote drugs. It's more of a plant. It's more of something that, quite frankly, with the endocannabinoid system that we all have within us, that we're actually programmed to use. So it's nothing new. It's been around for eons, and no one's ever died from it. And quite frankly, the safety profile is much better than alcohol. That's easy.
But Keith, isn't this what some people were concerned about during our debate over medical marijuana, that they say, hey, listen, you pass it in Florida, medical marijuana, and the next thing they're going to come after is saying, let's make it, you know, legal recreationally?
I think you have to assess policies on the basis of what the likely outcome of the policy will be. If you design the policy just right, very carefully, you can actually discourage use among teenagers, and yet you make it safer for people who already use it. People are already using marijuana. We've tried for 80 years to have a prohibition regime, and it's failed. It evidently failed. So the question isn't what were people scheming to do 2 or 3 years ago. The question is, what does a wise policy look like? And we can set up this policy in the right way. Derive, by the way, somewhere in the neighborhood of $500 million here in the state of Florida that can be put to good use, including treatment for opiate addiction and treatment, paying for mental health services, which are very scarce around this state. So you can take that $500 million. It's hard to estimate. It's somewhere in that neighborhood, maybe a little south. And use it for good things, actually address the drug problems we have.
But aren't there a number of obstacles that other states that are legalizing it for recreational or medical uses still having to overcome, and including that federal law has not changed? It is still illegal under FDA rules and regulations, and therefore companies like, whether it's for recreational use or medical marijuana use, can't do their banking in normal ways. And wouldn't we be bringing those issues into Florida when right now it exists less?
Listen, Alan, in the space we all navigate around all those federal Schedule I issues. But the most important thing is that the federal Schedule I designation inhibits further research into medical cannabis and cannabis in general. And that's really the issue. Everybody wants more dedicated research, the type of double-blinded studies that other medicines have been able to show their effectiveness from. So we know the safety profile of cannabis is unmatched. Now we need to get the research going to show the positive social benefits, both on the medical side and, quite frankly, once again, legal adult responsible use. It's an exit drug for alcohol. It's an exit drug for opiates. It's an exit drug for other recreational substances, much more dangerous than cannabis.
Keith, nobody knows the Florida legislature and Florida politics better than you do. Can you think of other situations where a community has tried to make sure something remains illegal when it already is illegal in the state?
I can't think of anything exactly like that. These preemption issues actually show up in all kinds of places. So Sarasota County tried to have a fairly high standard for its fertilizer ordinances, correctly so, by the way, and the state preempted them. And I know exactly where that came from. It came from fertilizer companies. And the big
sounds like another show that we're actually planning to do.
Yeah. So, this preemption thing is all over the place, and I personally don't like it. But this, making something illegal that's already illegal, again, I have to suspect it's grandstanding.
Barry, do you think that the County Commission will actually vote on this? And if so, what are you and some of your colleagues planning to do about it?
If the County Commission is going to vote on this, Alan, I would like to invite them to my clinic first to see the type of patients that come into the clinic, to see what medical cannabis is doing for those patients. I think that would give them a much better sense of what we're seeing in the cannabis space in general, both medicinal cannabis and what ultimately I think in this state will be legal adult responsible use. So they need to come in and get educated, and I welcome them anytime they want.
We're talking about recreational use of marijuana here, but if you're talking about its usage for pain and why people use it for medical reasons, would their treatment be more effective or better if they were using the smokable kind without taking the...
Well, we know there's a lawsuit right now pending at the state level, of course. It's probably going to go to the Supreme Court. That would be the Kathy Jordan, John Morgan, John Mills smokable cannabis case, already decided in favor of the people of the state of Florida. But 10 minutes it took the state to appeal the case on our tax dollars.
Right, so time for final thoughts here. Keith, when you see the County Commission considering an ordinance like this, given what the situation is the state, what should people walk away with?
I think that what I would encourage them to do on this issue is actually look at research and look at the facts. You have to design a state law just right to make it a wise policy. It can be done. I think this is really a fear-based thing. I don't know who put them up to this or what the point of it was, but I don't take it very seriously as far as a policy debate's concerned.
Barry, do you think that this is just a matter of time when states like Florida will make marijuana legal for even recreational reasons?
Well, I do, and I think that's the most important part of the medical program, is showing these citizens of the state of Florida that people can use cannabis appropriately, can go to work, pay their bills, raise their kids, and do all the things that, quite frankly, we've been knowing that people have been doing illegally using cannabis through the years. So it's time to bring it out of the closet, make it appropriately legal, and make sure that we educate and advocate appropriately for the safe use.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you very much. Dr. Barry Gordon of the Compassionate Cannabis Clinic of Venice, and Professor Keith Fitzgerald, who teaches political science at New College.